Raz, I'm going to start. It looks a little different in the room today. Let me set this up.
You know why? Because I'm sitting here and you're sitting there.
Yeah. So it's not the normal generalist thing. This is the first shot at this. We're calling this the Generalists Roundtable. And fortunately, we have a round table. I'll start with the person next to me. Please introduce yourself, because it should come from you who you are.
Hiah Goh, OpenSpace Ventures, formerly unreasonable podcaster, but not anymore.
Not anymore. You have joined the roundtable.
Yes.
And I would say you're born and bred Singaporean, so that's your thing. Have come here. You've also been on the show, so people know about that. But introduce yourself.
Yes, great to be here. My name's Alex Dwek. I'm COO of Nas.io.
Yeah.
I'm from London originally, but I've lived in Singapore for the last 9 years.
Yeah. And I think what we want to do here, and we'll just be transparent about this, is we want to just chit chat, have some fun here, and talk about tech, AI, where's Singapore going, where's the thing that is happening. I think AI is a big one on everybody's thing, and I just want to boil the ocean here a little bit in this fun kind of roundtable setting. So we're going to kick off with what do you guys feel about Singapore and AI? What's happening? I know you have a pretty interesting view of this. And I was also curious when I asked this question. Nas started with the whole one video a day thing, Nas Daily, some years ago. You probably know more about it in the exact dates. And then you guys redid this with a heavy use of AI in a very interesting way. How are these two bookends comparing to each other?
Yeah, I can start with that, and then we can dive into Singapore and AI. So for us, 8 years ago, we started our journey with Nas Daily, and it was 1 minute video every day on Facebook for 1,000 straight days. So just to give everyone an idea of the process to make a video, it was 7 hours of work for 1 minute video. So it was the scripting, the shooting, the editing, the publishing, all that end to end. It was one person doing it. And yes, 7 hours a day for 1 minute. About 80 days ago, we restarted the journey, and we said we're going to make 100 AI videos.
100, okay, got it.
In 100 days. Yeah. And we are now doing this every single day. And instead of taking 7 hours a day, it can take less than an hour, which is crazy, per video. Yeah. And we are getting tens of millions of views per video.
It's bigger than before.
It's bigger than before. And it's crazy on what you can do. We can go into a little bit about the differences. But if I go into now, what does that mean for the state of AI in Singapore? Well, from my perspective and from Nas.io, we're all about the individual. What can the individual do today that they couldn't do before? And I think that we are entering this period of every individual can now be a creator, an entrepreneur, a solopreneur in a way that wasn't possible before. You don't need large teams. You don't need huge budgets. You can just get started. And that is what we're excited about. Has it taken off in Singapore? Well, I'd love to hear everyone's opinion.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? The problem is also that everybody can be a creator without a team. And so your signal noise ratio has increased significantly. I mean, Nas would have been very revolutionary because it did take 7 hours to do it. And so not that many people was going to make the commitment. Now you just see so much stuff. There's a different challenge. I'm very impressed that you guys, despite the noise ratio, still can cut through. And my perspective is I used to run a TV channel. So what that senses to me is that your messaging is correct, your branding is correct, your viewers know what to expect. And so for you, it becomes a tremendous force leverage. But imagine somebody who's just trying to come up with their own positioning. It must be very, very hard.
Yeah, but how much is the storytelling in AI to come up with the idea and thing? Because I watch all of them, right? And Nas is in them mostly, and it's kind of like he's
even an AI Nas.
Yeah, it's like he's inside of it, and it's cool. But I guess you're saying it's much easier to construct this video because AI is doing the video. But is AI helping you guys construct the story too? Or is that?
So we're in a fortunate position that before this sort of VO3 started, we had 2,000 videos that we'd made. We had all the data points.
Yeah.
What went viral? What didn't go viral? Yeah. What hooks worked? What hooks didn't work?
Yeah.
So then we can use AI to speed up that process, which is to say, let's build a Nas GPT that can storytell, that can write scripts based on which storylines, hooks performed well. We learned, for example, when you talk about the tallest, shortest, oldest, youngest, these kind of stories always do well.
Yeah.
They attract attention. So going back to Hian, your point, today there's a lot more noise. but the skills of cutting through,
That's right.
of grabbing attention are still as relevant as ever. In fact, I've noticed that some people actually get a little bit lazy on the storytelling and the attention grabbing because the tools are so powerful. So like, let's make something really shiny.
That's a mistake.
But not focus on it. And I don't think there's much difference because we're building tech as well as content. The principles are very similar. You need to find some sort of audience market fit. Like we talk about PMF, right? Product market fit.
Yeah.
And it's really about not giving up, like trying to nail what resonates. Now, the good thing about AI is you can learn that a lot faster.
Yeah.
And that's where you can improve more quickly. But it doesn't mean just because you have these tools, you'll be a success straight away.
But I think as a new creator, you don't have all this data, you don't have all this knowledge, you just have the tools and you think you can be Nas. How do you approach this?
So I'm helping a lot of entrepreneurs get started. And I would say, instead of having the data points yourself, you can use the internet and analyze what's successful and what's not. So let's just say you were starting to build a LinkedIn channel.
I so disagree to that.
Okay, I want to hear that. But I would say,
I was waiting for you.
I want to improve my
Alex.
I want to improve my LinkedIn content. Let's say someone here is like building on LinkedIn. I can look at and analyze the top 1,000 posts, right, of a specific creator and say, what are the common properties? Let me try and apply that to my own content. But I want to hear why you disagree.
No, okay, so let's break it down. If the noise ratio is very high now, if the cost to produce is very low, and we're talking about very low, like you can produce it on your mobile phone. So I'll give you a context. When I started Asian Food Channel, if you wanted to make a 24-minute episode something, minimum it will cost you $35,000 for the entire setup, right? Just for that 24 minutes. So you really had to think about the story. You had to think about everything, right? Today, you can just start putting it on a camera and you can start yabbering away, and the cost is essentially zero with CapCut and all that kind of stuff. So why I think that essentially you don't need to analyze the market is because you just have to be that one weird thing. So I'll give you an example, right? So I don't know what you follow on Instagram, but I recently subscribed to a coal mining Instagram page. Coal mining. Have you seen this? No. The guy's just like coal miner, and so you're doom scrolling, and it's so unique. I mean, it's a guy in like Pakistan, India, and he's having a tough life. He's got a pickaxe and he's hitting into seams of coal, and the coal's dropping, and he's collecting it, and it's a window into a pretty brutalist lifestyle, right? Which is intriguing. But you know what you're going to get from that Instagram page. It's just people doing it. So you go like, I don't know how many times I'm going to watch coal mining, but I'll follow it just in case.
And how many times have you watched
And then you
it?
get the follow, right? So you really stand for something so specific. And then people just go, I just find. So why analyze it? Just go into your soul and say, what is the weirdest thing that I do that nobody else does? I'll just do a page where I do that all the time. And if it's cool, like there's billions and billions of people, I will get 10,000, 20,000 views. So that's, I think, what you do, right?
So I would say yes to some part of that and no to another.
Okay, let's go. Okay, you got to teach me how to be a...
But you're always trying to make, like, I think the lens of I want attention is quite different than I want to build a business out of the attention.
I can see that. I mean, I would say the point, Hian, you're making is about the niche, which is to say that the coal miner in Pakistan, right, there is an audience out there that is interested in what this person is doing.
Sorry, let me try. The point I'm trying to make is you don't need to do the research, you just do the thing.
Right.
And then if you do that abstraction that's so unique, you'll find the audience.
But the counter to that is that there are millions of channels on YouTube with the most obscure niches, and they get 0 views, 0 traction.
That is true. I didn't say that all will succeed, but I'm saying that if you're going to at least have a fighting chance of succeeding, that's what I would do.
So I think I would agree, surprisingly, I would agree that if you're going to have a fighting chance, you have to stand out. You have to have something unique about you. What I meant by the analysis is that there are certain properties that all successful channels do
that's cool.
to attract attention.
Okay, that's cool.
So for example, if I took this at a very basic level, the first 3 seconds of any video is key to attracting people's attention. It plays into the algorithm. The algorithm looks at who stays.
The tacticalness, the thumbnail.
Correct.
Yeah.
So these things you could analyze. What makes
I won't say I don't spend any time on this
We've
problem.
done that, and
Michael just nodding,
Unreasonable podcast had not that many views. So, I should have come to your academy.
Maybe, but the thing is that the truth is that we've tested. You can do tons of optimizations on the thumbnail.
That's valuable.
The how long is the video? But the truth is, if the idea is bad, it doesn't matter.
Okay, there we go. We agree.
It's all about the idea. So going back to your point, and this is where I agree. If the idea is niche enough, is interesting enough, there will be an audience for it. If the idea isn't great, and you just do all these other things, it's not going to work.
But I just bring it up because I also see a lot of people kind of trying to start from the wrong perspective, which is like, oh my God, I want to be an influencer. Here's what I'm going to do. And then you should go well, find something that you kind of really are obsessed about, which means you kind of will enjoy doing that thing. And then take it to the nth degree and you'll find the audience. And then, of course, go to the Nas Daily Academy, figure out the top thumbnail and everything, and then you're a winner, right? So there's another guy, he's called what's it called? Korean husband cooking. Have you heard of this thing? It's just the most hilarious thing, he's just he's like a Korean dude in America, he looks Korean. He's got a physical shape of a Korean guy. And then the wife just goes cook me an omelet. And he overdoes it, right? You go and then everyone's just and then he goes, here you go. And then she just gives really? You had to do that for an omelet? What kind of maniac are you, right? And then everyone goes, this is great. I want to watch the next thing. First of all, I want to see how he pisses off his wife. And then, of course, the wife grudgingly eats the omelet and goes, yeah, it's kind of good.
It's okay.
But why did you have to do that, right?
For me, the question, why the influencer? Why the person want to be an influencer?
No, so I think that's...
What's the reason, starting from there?
So coming back to this, right? So I'd done a TV channel for 10 years, right? And, when you are... Even though you ran a TV channel on food, the basic principles of making content reside. So I've read books like, Story by Rob McKee, which is a very influential book that if you go study film at NYU, you read it. And there's the hook, there's the emotional engagement, there's the up and the down. And so even if I go through life today and I look at Instagram stories or things, or I watch movies, I can almost see where the structure is. And it's horrible because sometimes you watch a movie and it's a terrible movie and you go okay, second climax is coming up on the third act. Yeah. He's probably going to die, but actually he didn't die. And so there's going to come back. He's going to come back then. Okay, fine. And it's you Matrix, right? So I think there's always still a craft towards telling a story.
Yeah, you see it in that 1 minute video.
You see it in the 1 minute video.
And you guys have the arc.
And you should learn it. But then you should really think about like that Korean husband, that's an arc, right? He does something very simple to try and please his wife. And this is and then the beautiful part of it is always the cognitive dissonance in any story, which is she hates him, but she's still eating the food. You know what I mean? And that's the hook. And then people go, so when you're making content, right, you really have to try and find, I always think, cognitive dissonances. That tickles the minds, and if it elicits an emotion, people will come back.
But this couple are always thinking, why are they doing that? Just to have fun for themselves, or they want to make money?
No. So I think what happens, and I know a lot of people probably are accidental content creators, right? They were probably doing it for a joke, and then it blows up.
It works.
It works, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and there's a difference. I think there are those who do this for art's sake. You talked about NYU, right? And you're studying, and there are those who just love the artistic process of making a movie or a documentary or an episode. And they're not doing it for the monetization goal necessarily. Maybe they want to make a living out of it, but the art form is the purest sense. But there are others who are on TikTok or Instagram who are saying, this is a means to an end. I want attention because I think that I can monetize that attention in the future. So if I'm an individual traveling the world, maybe it's like, I want to make a living doing what I love. And I'll start by traveling because that's what I want to do, and I'll find a way to make money from it later. There are others who are entrepreneurs who say, this is my way to find my customers. I'm going to speak out in the world, talk about my product, and those people are going to come and try my product. Now, I have a view on where AI comes into this because it's, okay, on the one hand, it's the content creation process, but now it's never been easier to build software. So I see software, especially things like vibe coding, as being the new content. You can spin up an app very quickly and start storytelling on social, for example, to start getting your first users. But if you can literally build an app in just a few hours, is this just we release in the world? Do we get viral apps which become like viral content? Do you make money? Do you not make money? I mean, I see you shaking your head.
No, I just don't feel that, like, I think vibe coding is a thing, and it's from the perspective of it gives people something to do. It does create content, and you see people shipping these things. But I highly suspect that the majority of these things don't turn into being very big software products because of the complexity in actually shipping them and making them good.
Okay, Michael,
no one knows yet, right?
What the hell is vibe coding?
Yeah, like,
can we just pause there?
Well, I think to me it's no different than like the things where you watch a streamer of someone playing a game, like, which I've never understood, but these things are huge. Now, I'm not a huge game person, but the idea of watching
they pull up something like Cursor.
Yeah,
they type in prompts.
You can find these all over YouTube.
Yeah, you type in prompts, and then like Python code turns up.
It's the whole thing.
What code turns up? Python?
It's whatever they're doing, right? And
whatever you ask.
Okay, all right. Like, let's get technical, right? Yeah. What, like, the vibe code I see all that. What's that?
Well, usually? I think the ones that are shipping apps, they're doing the UI, they're doing the back end, and they're sitting there like recording themselves.
Yeah, but what's it written in nowadays? Java?
I think it's probably React for the front end, which is
Xcode.
Yeah, React meaning it's the code to be able to build iOS and Android and even web.
Also, React is the higher level abstraction.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
You could have simple.
Last time I thought about it was
Xcode.
Xcode.
Using the packages that any code developer guy would use.
Yeah. So there's an AI driving a high level language abstraction like React, which can split to like Xcode and Android and then
whatever.
So that kind of stuff doesn't get optimized. You see, that's what you're saying.
No, I don't think it does.
At scale, it breaks.
And I think that, like, we had George on talking about, like, if you can, his analogy that I like is like, if you're really good at driving a tricycle, AI can suddenly make the tricycle go 50 miles an hour and you'll probably crash, right? So his view is that's a lot of the vibe coding, that it doesn't turn into... Now, it doesn't stop, I think, content creators and people from doing stuff, or people building what I think is the utility apps for themselves, which I've done a few of those for like my workflows and things like that. And that's useful, right? Like, I need a script for that. I need an Apple shortcut for that. I'm doing that now quite often.
Non-scalable, non-things.
But I'm not like going to ship something. Now, I think a few people turn it into shipping things, but I think, I think all of this comes down to the solo-ness of being able to build things, whether it's content, whether it's apps, whether it's services. That's what I feel is happening. And I think if we get back to Singapore, where does this go in your guys' mind? One, you from a content creator, but I'm also interested in you as a VC and what you're doing. Like, it is turning things on its head.
I want to flip back, because this is an important point for anybody who's watching this, which is actually you bring up a very good abstraction, right? So I've journeyed with Love Bonito for a very long time, and everyone thinks that doing e-commerce is easy, and the truth is it is easy. At a smaller scale, you get a Shopify account, you click that, everyone takes lots of percentages along the way, but you could sell 1,000 t-shirts. Try selling like 10,000 t-shirts in 24 hours when there's a sale, right? So, it turns out that any major e-commerce player, including Love Bonito, you can't even connect it to the ERP. The ERP crashes. So you actually build a middleware that caches the thing so that there's a high latency and the throughput per second, all that kind of stuff. And it turns out Love Bonito actually has a pretty serious tech team, right? And I didn't know that until I went under the hood, because I'm on the board. I'm like, you spent how much on your tech? Well, why do you spend so much on tech? And so the same thing with vibe coding, right? I think you can get to a certain abstraction, which is like how that happened, and it will empower a lot of solo entrepreneurs and e-commerce people. But this idea that those solo entrepreneurs are going to replace a big platform like Amazon, and then vibe coding is going to do that. That's the interesting thing.
But it cannot. Sorry, currently it cannot, because the backend, it's not scaled.
No, so what happens is if you prove that, it's almost like a prototyping. You like that, and then you go like, okay, fine. We're going to break the whole thing down. We're going to rebuild it with like TP throughput per second, latency, everything. But we figured out the narrative. So that's actually a positive thing, right?
Absolutely. Look, I think the
creativity.
The promise of vibe coding as a concept is that any individual can build a Love Bonito. Any individual can build this billion business. This is what's promised. You can build an app. You can be a one-person unicorn. Let's talk about the reality of vibe coding. The reality of vibe coding is you can build a landing page. You can build a utility app. I really want to track my finances. Let me build a way to track all my stocks. So there's a big disconnect today between what's promised and what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Now, my perspective, I focus a lot on the individual, the small solopreneur. And the question I have for Singapore and for around the world is, can these tools help an individual start making $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month? Can it be an effective way to build a strong side income? Side hustle is I feel it's like a negative phrase, but side income, I don't know. It depends if you like the word hustle.
I like the word hustle.
So maybe
hustles.
Side hustles. But could you be someone who says, look, I want to make supplementary income for my family, or I'm a student, right? And I'm getting off the ground, and now I can suddenly make 50, 60, 70K a year.
This is great.
I think it can. And I think that's really powerful. Now, the question we're a platform that's trying to help solopreneurs. Our question is, how do you help millions of people do this?
I'm coming and I'm going to attend your thing because I like side hustles. Even though I shouldn't have them.
I've seen your pizza oven in your office.
I have an experimental pizza. So no, but I think there is a method to the madness for sure. And to answer your question about Singapore, I think the Singaporean needs to be a much more flexible animal when it comes to employment and generating income and financial freedom, right? And the reason for that is we as a culture of human beings, maybe historically what we would do is we think, there's the government and there are great jobs and all we have to do is follow tried and tested paths. And once again, it's broken, right? Yeah. I suspect the new generation Singaporeans are already on top of it. We have a lot of interns, right? So I was talking to Jessica, my partner, and she says, I don't know, man, it's really tough. I think it's hard to get a job nowadays, right? I'm really worried for the new generation. Jessica speaks in these kind of hushed tone cadences, right? And so I said, you think about it, right? My dad had a job for 35 years. I changed my job every 5 years. And my dad was like, what are you doing, right? And then the next generation people were like, I changed my job every 2 years. I'm like, what are you doing? And then now the new generation is like, I don't have a job, but I have side hustles or I have a much more almost like a control over my destiny, right? And so I just think of it as a longer continuum of a change in the approach to which you live your life. And for Singapore, the kids in Singapore, I think they're very lucky. They grew up in an empowered society. They're very well positioned to go and attend the academy and chart their own destiny, which means that we have an opportunity in Singapore to be much more self-actuated, and we should embrace it.
That may challenge a bit because the culture is risk averse.
Exactly.
How it comes together, you don't have a job and your family tell you, how does it work with the Singaporean culture?
Because you're Israeli, right?
Yes.
You don't even think of the box. There is no box. Where's the box?
I don't have a box. That's it.
Singapore, we got 5 boxes, right? And then this box, that box. So that's the whole point. I mean, it turns out my entire adult life has been to try and make Singapore a more creative, more self-actuated place. And so that is what I am saying, that if you try and continue to be risk averse, I think that's the riskiest thing to do. So,
But do you think that change and what you're talking about in this new generation fits with kind of Singapore as an economic powerhouse?
Oh, that's a different concept.
But that's something to consider, right? It changes the dynamics of large companies, large tax bases.
Yes. Now we get into structural
ADB,
issues.
Enterprise Singapore,
I just spent a lot of time EDB and Jim Keller, and just got to drop it in.
Is that okay? So let's
wait. I'll answer that question.
You mentioned Tenstorrent.
Yeah, Tenstorrent.
Yeah. So I want to ask that. So finish.
No, we'll finish that
train of thought.
So see, Singapore is a very interesting country, and ChatGPT does a really good job. So last year's budget was about figures are roughly right. It's like $100 Okay, I'll do it in US dollars. It's like 80 billion US dollars is our budget. We spend 4% on GDP. Then we got spend $15,000 on education, OECD levels of education, healthcare, very good to everything. And we spend $80 billion, right? And that's 6 million population. We collect $60 billion in taxes. So we have a $20 billion deficit. But then Temasek, GIC, and all these institutions, we actually have a policy of whatever is generated, we can take about 50% of that as a dividend. So people don't realize that every year we get 20 billion into the budget, and last year we had a surplus of like 0.5 billion. We balanced the budget in Singapore. We charge less for tax. We spend 4% GDP on, and it's just an incredible setup, right? And structurally, that has been the setup for Singapore because we've got very, very efficient delivery of services, but we've got multinationals and we've got all that fabric. The challenge now in Singapore is the costs are going up very high.
Yes.
Right? If I don't actually mention that, I would be disingenuous.
For everyone.
For everyone, right? Yeah. And so I don't have an answer to that, but all I can say is that you should not be thinking that, you should be just accepting the fact that you're going to get a job and you should be okay. You should be always on your feet trying to figure out what is the next unreasonable thing to do, trying to break out. And I think that competitiveness means that, Singapore then keeps on being very, very strong. The alternative is to get the high-speed train to KL, which I was just there, and live there and arbitrage it. So I think Singapore's got a lot of...
Train's not built yet.
Yeah, train's not built yet. So I think Singapore has got an incredible place in ASEAN to be the center of economic activity for AI and all that kind of stuff to happen. But for Singaporeans, it's a very high bar. You have to chart your own destiny, or you then have to probably live in a lower cost country.
Yeah, and I think it's inevitable for some stuff. Like we had just launched today the episode with Jake from Prefer Coffee. Do you guys know Prefer Coffee? It was a very interesting episode.
How's this coffee tasting? Is it good?
It was good.
It was good.
We actually,
it was good.
Really?
We got the
I've been checking that stuff.
No,
it's been
so on the show,
very good vibes in the studio. Maybe it's added to the taste.
Every 6 months it gets better.
No. So on the show though, he had his cold brew, which is the 30% prefer, 70% coffee.
Okay.
Because that's what they want to move towards. And that was quite good, right?
Yeah, that's actually not bad.
But what he talks about, and this is actually my question for you, like you definitely have a media vibe for what you do, but you've been at Grab, you've been in some other places, so you can talk pretty wide ranging, right? So we're gonna get a little bit techie for a minute, and then I want to ask you about Tenstorrent. But like he just espoused like how incredible, he came out of EF, by the way, one of the last EF cohorts. Jake did.
Look, we've chased him. We can neither confirm or deny that we're going to invest or not invest in him. Right? I know the guy very well.
Very high energy.
I really like you guys, really. But
all right, I'll connect you guys. But what I liked about it, he said, is like he couldn't imagine getting Prefer off the ground in any other kind of city.
Oh yeah,
because he said, they found him a place to have the lab. They've found equipment. They've had grants.
They have a bioreactor.
Yeah, and he goes, I just can't. Now he said to scale this, they have to look outside of Singapore because they need more space and more goods, which makes sense. But he said from getting a food tech company off the ground, which is real in my mind, deep tech. He's like, I couldn't have done it anywhere else, right? Yeah. Now I always feel like Singapore can or should, and maybe I don't see enough, do more of this.
Okay.
And maybe that's why Jim's here.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is the cognitive dissonance.
Did I do this right?
No, this is the cognitive dissonance, right? Because the Singaporeans are like, okay lah, we do this, we got this, but we set up the food tech thing, we got a bioreactor, everything like that. Let's do it. And then all the rest of the Singaporeans go, I don't want to do, I don't want to, And so then the risk aversion doesn't kick in. So people like Jake coming here, they're like, what's wrong with you guys? This is really, really good.
Yeah, he said everything's here to take risk, but no one wants to take the risk. And he nailed it perfectly.
So
and then what he said to Israel, which I love, you'll love this. He goes, in Israel, everybody wants to take risks, but there's no platform to enable you.
There is no structure. That's what he said.
And I was like, that's
a whole bunch of Israelis here, a whole bunch of Iranians here, some Ukrainians here. Look, I'm very glad that 50% of Singapore residents are not Singaporeans. And I'm going to say this on camera, like Singapore's a very creative place, but but it's not necessarily because it's Singaporean people, right? I'm very glad because it takes a generational shift. And of course, Jake's co-founder is a Singaporean guy.
Yes.
And he was from A-Star, and he had like a scholarship, and he threw it all away.
Well, he's bonded, right? He was bonded, so he
look, Jake converted one Singaporean.
Converted.
I have to convert my people one at a time. Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah.
I think what we have to remember is that the consumer base in Singapore is small, right? So if you're building a company here, you take Jake's company, right? He's not going to be able to build a massive company necessarily just servicing Singapore.
Which is not the intent.
Which is to go outside.
Yeah.
But then the question then is, when you want to build a company here, what are the foundations you want to build here? So when I think about our company, we're global. We have our R&D here. We have our engineers here. We have our product managers here. We have our designers here. There are some things like a salesperson who's selling to the US has to be in the US, right? So the real question for me is, when I think about Singapore, when you're building tech in Singapore, what do you want here? You've got the stability, the legal system, the capital, etc. Can you have more of the tech talent? I think that's an ongoing battle. I think you'll have an opinion on this. I think
expensive.
Big companies.
It
is, but then I think actually the region is getting more expensive. Pre-COVID, we had a lot of engineers in India. I would say at a point we were like, actually, it's better to hire in Singapore because there were added values of everyone being in the same place, in the office.
With AI.
Correct. So then the question is, okay, well, where are these talented engineers coming from? Are you bringing them in? Are you training? Who's training the graduates in Singapore? Companies like ByteDance, Shopee, others have done a great job. I have to say, I give them credit. They've brought a series of talented engineers through. But you go to an engineer at ByteDance now and you say, okay, great, there's a Series A startup. It's growing super fast. Do you want to go and give up your benefits and come and work?
They'll say no.
They'll say no.
Yeah.
And this is the challenge.
That's the big tech put, know.
There is also, by the way,
big tech put. This is true. Singapore big tech put.
Yeah.
It just means that the person who finally walks into the OpenSpace office and has decided not to take the big tech put is somebody I would take very seriously.
Yeah.
So I think that's a positive.
But I think this is good for Singapore. The problem is it still goes back to your earlier comment. It's making the place more expensive.
Yeah.
All of this agitation for talent, but it's inevitable. To me, it's no different than what's happening in the valley with these crazy salaries. We just get a little smidgen.
But the
of it,
velocity of entrepreneurs is different. You cannot compare it.
No, but I have to. Okay, first of all, I have to defend my country now because I think that was a little bit too harsh. Because it's about cost, right? Is it expensive? There's so many things in Singapore that we take for granted, which we don't even have to pay for, right? We've had this conversation, education, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you pay for...
Well, I'm subsidizing yours.
Yeah,
but,
I'm totally subsidized, right?
Yeah.
So my sister lives in London, and I do not want to tell you how much she has to pay on a post-tax basis to make sure that their children have some education that's safe and all that kind of stuff.
It's a crazy amount.
And just to give you a perspective for any of the listeners who are not Singaporean, like if my daughter goes to Singapore Management University, and I hope she does because it's a great university, they'll pay 38,000 Sing. That's like 32,000 US dollars for the whole thing, right?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
So I could give her if she went to an overseas school and it would cost me like 300,000. I'm like, here, take 300,000, take 38, keep the rest of it, and do that, right? I'm still winning the money, right?
Version of
and so correct. And so healthcare is very cost effective here. The basics and taxes, right? So cars are expensive, houses are expensive, food is reasonable. So
I agree.
I'm going to have to really
I just want to add to
stop that
point.
narrative, right?
Let's just look at the center of startups globally. San Francisco, Silicon Valley. It's bloody expensive to live in these countries. It doesn't actually stop entrepreneurship.
It doesn't.
I think that in these cities, what we still need more of in Singapore is those success stories. That engineer who quit their job.
That's
exactly.
Right.
And then they made it didn't have to be a unicorn, but they made millions of dollars, right, from their options.
I always say the most exciting thing would be to see that the Ferrari parked at One North would come from a startup guy, not an old family money guy,
Why you need
right?
Ferrari? Let's.
I always say this, and I've said this before. I'll say it to the camera, like Kwek Sure, if you're seeing this, founder of Carousel, I need you to be worth like $100 million. Go completely berserk. Go to Taiwan, have an inappropriate girlfriend, get caught in the paparazzi. Everyone's there, and then have Ferraris, and then just go off the canvas for 2 years, and then come back and I've done it all, and I'm now I just wear black t-shirts, and I have a foundation. And then every other other Singaporean guy, I'm like, oh my God, I want to be an entrepreneur. I like, Quack, if you're listening, right, do it, okay? I've had this conversation with him.
We have an email interaction with him just today.
We need a Sean Parker of Singapore. I'm trying my best.
But like, for example, in the AI space, seeing companies like Manus move to Singapore, that's a really big statement for Singapore. It's a great thing. Yeah. It's going to attract talent in. Now, I would love that it was actually started in Singapore by Singaporeans versus building in China and moving, but it's still a start.
Okay, I mean, you want to go down that rabbit hole?
but Silicon Valley stuff isn't started by people from Silicon Valley.
Actually,
so to me, that's never mattered.
Also,
right?
you have great founders from India who are successful in the valley.
So we just came down a mountain in Indonesia, Bandung, and we did an offsite. And every year, OpenSpace Ventures, we think of like what are the new things, and we legitimately think that Singapore is going to be a fantastic base. And I'm just calling it out as Chinese entrepreneurs, but anybody who wants a neutral, geopolitically safe place. The Manus AI story is very interesting. I don't know if you know this. Do you know where they got the $75 million from?
They got it from, actually, I don't know. Tell me.
Yeah. So Manus got it from Benchmark Capital.
Yes, I did know that.
Right?
In the US.
Yeah. No, this is like, and the partner, I can't remember his name, right? So I met the founder. He went on to Super AI and he talked. And the first thing he says, we're a Singaporean company. I'm like, I didn't ask you that. And he got 75 from Benchmark. So what's the data point? Number one, Benchmark, who usually only invests in the Valley, chose to put $75 in a company based in Singapore. Yeah. That's a strong data point.
Very strong.
Number two, think of all the great talent that's now coming to Singapore. That's net positive. Number three, you would have thought that the partner at Benchmark, what ethnicity would have underwritten this one? Because it's from China. What's the ethnicity of the partner?
Was an Asian. I think.
It was an Indian. This was the guy, the Indian fellow. Yeah, it's an Indian. I forgot
but
his name.
But it's Benchmark in the US.
Yeah,
right?
Benchmark. Yeah, but I think the conspiracy thing. I think is that he probably has got very, very good connectivity into that B2B SaaS enterprise sales. Because I don't know. He knows Satya Nadella and he's got that whole sort of Indus Valley network. But his engine's like this Chinese hardcore AI data scientist thing. So he's playing that angle. That's positive, right? I don't want like a Chinese VC financing a Chinese company. I don't want a Singaporean VC. That's cross-cultural, right? Is that what Singapore can deliver for the world so that that gentleman doesn't have to go to the Valley and can't find Chinese food, that kind of thing?
This is why I always tell...
I think that's positive.
Yeah, and I always tell people that like Superbase isn't talked about enough because it's basically here.
Is that right?
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, but they are not Singaporeans.
They're not. They're not.
Yeah.
So
but that's what I'm saying.
Singaporean abstraction. So long as it's just as long as Singapore is just like a we have to separate between Singapore, the nation state of which I'm part of, and Singapore, the vibe coding startup of the world.
But right? I think that's a good thing.
But we can maybe look at this in the geopolitics of tech. So start with ByteDance, to start with TikTok. So ByteDance said, we serve America, we serve the world. We cannot be only in China. Let's make Singapore our headquarters outside of China. Second iteration, Manus. You're saying take a US investor with a Chinese company. Where do we go?
Singapore.
This creates a tremendous opportunity for Singapore, as you said.
This is
tremendous. This is the alternative HQ of the world for AI companies.
This is the Instagram coal mining Instagram page. That's Singapore. This is the one thing that we can actually do well, uniquely in the world.
And my point is, this isn't talked about enough.
Yeah.
Because what you normally see is the local stuff, the local fund, and that's fine. I'm not saying we don't need that too. That's great. You don't talk enough about why is Superbase here? It's mostly here. The founder stays in New Zealand now. I think we're trying to get him on the show.
Yeah.
Manus, that same thing. Why is the Tenstorrent founder in town talking to the Razer CEO? Go ahead.
Why is the Tenstorrent?
What's making Singapore interesting to him?
All right. Okay. So for your viewers, I'm a big fan of a guy called Jim Keller. Yeah. And if you have you heard of Jim Keller?
I don't. Tell me more.
See, so this is a great setup. Yeah. Jim Keller, I hate it. Jim's going to listen to this, right? Is arguably the world's greatest chip designer. He did the K9 chip, which made AMD as powerful as Intel, pissed off Intel. He did the Zen architecture, which made
bigger than Intel now.
Yeah, well, AMD's more. I mean, you would argue that
Intel is in big shape.
You would argue that Intel got so paranoid about it that they sold their ARM processor off to Marvell and they doubled down on x86 because they had to fight with AMD. It's all Jim Keller. Jim Keller is like he looks like a mountain man. If you ever Google
He looks like a
him.
backpacker.
Yeah, he is a
American?
backpacker.
He's
I
American?
just traveled. Yeah, he's American.
American,
No, he's Canadian. Sorry, you got it.
Okay.
Yeah, he's Canadian, but he
West,
lives in
East?
Toronto, and now he's in
Okay,
Santa
East,
Clara.
okay.
And I just traveled with him for a few days, and all he has is like a backpack and a foldable guitar, and he's just like. Anyway, I digress. He's the world's greatest chip designer. He then did the A3, A4 chip, and then he did the first self-driving one for Tesla. He actually started the Dojo project.
Oh yeah, okay.
He actually started the Dojo project. So, all right. So this is Jim Keller, right? So I met Jim 3 years ago, to your point about Singapore, because Singapore has got a huge semiconductor and chip design ecosystem, which if you talk to Jacqueline Poe now at JTC, she will always remind you, is bigger than tourism. Our chip design, that's her favorite line.
Well, the first Apple
so-
iMac used to get manufactured in Singapore, right? Like,
PlayStation, AMD finishes their chips here, all their systems chips, everything. This is really amazing. And then up north, you times that by 10 times in terms of manpower. You've got massive chip design capabilities in Penang, OSAT. Let's put Malaysia in perspective. Malaysia is so cost effective. Taiwanese subcontract some of their chip design to Malaysia.
big.
So this is why this place has been essentially powering a lot of chip efforts over many, many years, decades. So Jim ran a big team in Penang. He's very familiar. When Tenstorrent, and so coming back to what Tenstorrent is an AI company that is bet on a few things. They are betting on RISC-V, right? And if you think RISC-V is getting adoption, Vitalik, what's his name, Ethereum guy is now proposing that EVM converts to RISC-V, open source, so you don't need to pay a license fee to ARM x86. And they've got their own AI architecture, and they're starting to ship the Galaxy servers.
And by the way, RISC is something Intel sold out of too as well. And
Intel has sold out of everything that's not x86.
And that's why people say they've done it to themselves.
Yeah,
Sorry.
anytime Intel sells out something, that's the thing you bet on, right? And so I am a big fan of Jim. I met him 3 years ago because Silicon Box, which is a big wafer fab that just set up its packaging, advanced packaging, Jim flew down. And I went to this fab and I was looking around and someone said, you gotta meet that guy. That guy's the world's greatest chip designer. So as a VC, what do? You go like, oh, hi. And it turned out to be true. And so for 3 years now, I've been walking around.
But Tenstorrent's going to build a chip? Is that, or they don't talk about what they're doing?
No. So Tenstorrent has got the Galaxy, not Galaxy, so I'll start again. So Tenstorrent has got the wormhole chip, and now they've got a black hole chip. Right, so Wormhole's Global Foundries 14, Black Hole is now TSM6, and they're going to go Samsung 4. This guy, he can get Samsung 4, Samsung 3 because he already knows all these people. He's been building chips for many, many years, right? Which comes back to this whole Silicon Valley. I just started, I'm going to do a chip. I'm like, you in which army, right? But let's go back there. The point being is that Singapore and Malaysia are key places in the world to set up all this kind of chip design. It's fabulous. He's going chiplet. He's got RISC-V. He's got a lot of capabilities here. Taiwan, of course, has got the Taiwan stuff. But between these three countries, these are the three most important countries when it comes to this kind of stuff, especially in AI.
And again, that's not talked
What is
about
the competition to them?
NVIDIA.
I think the best way of thinking about it.
Incumbent.
Yeah, because I'd be very careful because Chim's going to be like,
Incumbent.
You didn't say it correctly. I'm like, no, everyone's taking a different
Jim,
approach.
just come on the show and explain yourself.
I told you, if Jim comes on the show, there'll be no views. His abstraction level is so high.
I'll enjoy
abstraction
it.
level is
I'll
high.
enjoy
I'm going
it.
to watch it. Yeah, that's what.
So I'll give you the thing, right? So NVIDIA is making like a Formula One car. Absolutely fast. If you want to compete in Formula One, if you want to train Llama, 6, if you want to like beat up Mark Zuckerberg, NVIDIA today with the NVLink and everything, and the B200 is basically two H100 mashed together so that they don't have to put NVLink. It's like that's the kind of Formula One engineering. And then AMD is looking at it and go like, I'm making like a Formula 2 car. Like I have the same approach. It looks the same. You can buy the car. We can do inference. Price performance, not bad, right? So if you don't want to do Formula 1, come with AMD. And actually AMD's revenues have increased, so that strategy is working. Tenstorrent is like, I'm going to make a Toyota Prius. And
everybody.
everybody can use it, right? and I'm going to use open source and stuff like that. So a couple of characteristics: no HBM. Right? So everyone thinks, oh my God, you need, how much, like you go out to like x.com, how much HBM, how much, like Tenstorrent, no HBM, because the architecture, I won't go too deep about it, means that the data load is much lower. That was the first thing Jim said, is like, no HBM. Number two, they can wire their whole system. It's so simple. You can have 100 Tenstorrent computers. You can abstract it into one virtualized thing. You can't really do that. It's like a lot of technical things. And so one of the reasons why I like being a venture capitalist is once in a while you meet people who are so first principle thinkers. They will like to break models and break abstractions. And when you first do it, it is painful, it's expensive, it's totally unreasonable, but there's always a flip over point. And when that flip over point happens, it's just magical to watch. So I just keep on telling Jim, like, whatever you need, like, I'll come and help you. I just want to see you just change an abstraction at that level.
And the image of the week was Jim and Hian and founder of Razer hanging out.
He's the
so
CTO.
something's going on.
He did go to Razer, and he's been doing a lot of things quietly. He's also, he lets his actions speak louder than his words. So he's sort of like the engineer's engineer, right? And
he's a famous dude.
He's a very famous dude. He's a very famous dude. He's a famous dude that you've never heard of, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just shows.
And that's what Jim likes. He just like, I just make
But
chips.
he's hanging in Singapore, which leads me to believe they're going to do more.
I just put him on a plane to New York. He's back. But he'll be back. He'll be back in, he's coming back, yeah.
So we're close to wrapping up, and I want to keep an eye on the time. But what I want to do is give everybody a chance to talk about, like, what are you excited about personally for what you're working on and what Singapore means and what you think can happen with it. Because I think, one of the things we want to do here is end on a strong, positive note for what we're doing and what we feel about Singapore. So.
Yeah, so one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is what business models work well in Singapore, Southeast Asia. In the past, you saw this big explosion of B2B SaaS in the US and Europe. And a lot of founders I talked to in Singapore have really struggled with that model. They found that customers in this region have not been prepared to commit. But I think in the recent year or two, we've seen this explosion of alternative business models like usage-based and others. So for example, Intercom is a great case study. There's a podcast online with Lenny, who interviews the founder of Intercom and talks about how they were several hundred million ARR business. They made a complete pivot to their AI agent, Fin AI, which is an AI agent that solves your customer support. They do not charge per month, per seat, etc. They charge per contact resolved. So it's 99 cents per contact resolved.
Wow.
And we used to be a user of Intercom and pay, $100 a month, $200 a month. We moved to this model to solve our customer support queries. We're now paying Intercom $1,500 a month because it saved us so much headcount in solving customer support issues, like the first issue, the simple issues that they face. Now, I think if more companies think in this way, there could be a huge explosion in revenue for these B2B companies in Southeast Asia. Because when you look at what can I save versus let me just load up cost per seat, monthly cost, 1 year commitments, it completely changes how companies think about subscribing or adopting your service. So I think I would love to see more of this model in Southeast Asia, more founders thinking about this. And I do think for the region, it's going to be really interesting.
So we had Bernard on, Bernard Leong, right? And and his new stuff he's doing is this kind of a payment model. There's no seat thing. It's basically like a usage model. And he's saying and I actually think that's
he's a
where
pretty intense guy.
He is. And I think some of the disruption in software, whether it's Vibe Code or not, but the ability to do it is changing the pricing dynamics of
cost per seat is going to die. If you move to an AI first company, you cut your headcount by 30%, 40%.
What does the seat mean?
The seat means your revenues are going to decline. So it's existential for a lot of companies.
It's existential.
They haven't realized it yet.
By the way, this is how Snowflake actually changed the narrative of the usage.
Everything
is consumption based. This is how they break the pattern.
Not seat based.
So it's going to other domains, and I think this is the right
I have 2 Tech in Asia seat licenses for the whole firm.
It should be usage-based.
Sorry, Terrence.
He's gonna call you out.
It should be on usage, right?
He's checking the traffic now.
Terrence like, shit.
You, Raz, we'll go around the table. So,
write this down.
Yeah.
No, for me, it's more about. I think that the narrative of creating more startups over here, so you can have share stories and be able to have the velocity of other success stories and create them and fail. Because without that, I don't think this Southeast Asia will be able to even leverage AI. It's gonna liquidate to the US. All the GTM is gonna go to the US, but we need to share more, a better community, better in ecosystem, and this is the only way I can see that.
Agreed.
Also with the VCs, by the way.
Yeah, we need some more good VCs. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm just writing down some notes. For Singapore, I'll start by saying we've had a good run as a Singapore, Southeast Asia VC ecosystem for 10 years. Starting from 2013 when the mobile phone went from $400 to $100. That kicked off everything. Gojek, Grab, FinTech, Health Tech, EduTech. It's amazing that it's been a decade and it still works and the distribution is there. And we funded so many. I think we funded, funds $800 million. We probably put in like 550 into the ground and we're getting the money back. And, there's a couple of IPOs going on. That's a separate episode. The reason why I bring that up first is that the pessimism that you have now, where, where are the new founders? I think there's a retooling, right? So I was on the Super AI conference and I said the Cambrian moment for agentic has just appeared. You can have LangChain and then you connect it to an LLM and congratulations, you're an AI startup, right? And it was the same thing we saw, right? When two women set up PrestaShop and they're e-commerce entrepreneurs. So the Cambrian moment is coming. The cost to deliver is coming down. That's about 12 months away. So I'm looking forward to the reinvention of every single business model. An agentic version of Chope, which we fund, an agentic version of buying groceries, which Redmart, an agentic version of the thing. That's going to be a fantastic opportunity. And that's not the same as trying to build the second trend, which I'm seeing, which is the global firepower, like Manus.ai. That's brand new. That's a completely new opportunity for Singapore, as you have rightly pointed out, right? The geopolitical, neutral Switzerland of the startup world. And hopefully, more and more Singaporeans actually get the skills transfer from global talent, right? So that's two. So go ahead.
No, I want to say there is also one thing that jumped into my head, that in order to create this ecosystem, we also need the adoptions, meaning in B2B, more companies are welcoming more startups. Because now they're looking for brands.
No, but
it's part of the.
But we have to be like, Israel's done a great job. Everyone gets cybersecurity things like it's all in Tel Aviv. And Manus AI, if it becomes global, it's in Singapore, so be it, right? I think the new generations of things. So those are the two amazing opportunities which I think will power the Singapore tech VC ecosystem over the next 10 years. We just have to be patient when we transition. And hopefully you have SGX and all that kind of stuff. We talked about that. The third thing I've been saying to everybody, apart from the cultural, so that we have to be more, able to understand risks, is Singapore needs Malaysia and Malaysia needs Singapore.
Fair.
Right? And I'll tell you why, right? Like, we need a low cost, we need a spillover, we need logistics, we need power, right? So just a specific example, Singapore now has about 1 gigawatt of data center installed, which represents 70% of total data center installed in ASEAN. These numbers are probably 12 months.
Big plans for Malaysia.
Malaysia in Johor is already saying 3 gigas, so 3 times. I just came back from Malaysia. I got a briefing. They're going to like 10 or something crazy like that, right?
Wow.
They're going to be one of the top 10 data center providers because they've got water, they've got power, and they can build. So I met a guy who fired up the Google data center, right, in Negiri Sembilan, from land to operation. I mean, this is what he told me, 12 months with permits and everything.
I'm waiting for the train.
Yeah, and then in California, 12 months,
Well, and there's the whole special economic zone thing,
and
which
then
I
there's
think is going to
special
get interesting.
economic zone.
I've always been wondering what's going to be the startup programmatic things
it's going to be
inside the
interesting.
special, because I think that's yet to really be talked about, right? Where they're going to have that special economic zone. I'm wondering, what's the startup play? Because I'm thinking if I'm doing a new startup,
Yeah.
I'm playing right into that.
Yeah.
Like,
But I think what you're saying, those 3 pillars, they all actually interoperate.
Yeah.
So you have the infrastructure, you have the big tech, the Manus AI, the others. I see OpenAI has now got a startup hub here now as well. So you have both.
That's their headquarters.
The Switzerland of I think we heard it here first, right? From Hian, the Switzerland of AI in Singapore. And then that will feed in the founders.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting how that all interchanges.
But then if you don't have to be like, a 150 IQ human being, you could be like a hustly type human being, but you take advantage of all the agentic stuff and you reinvent the existing business model. That's a huge opportunity for us. And then last but not least, coming back to your point, Michael, I speak to enough Singaporean, civil servants / ministry people. We've got a blueprint for that special economic zone so that we've got a pathway for the next 10 years. Yeah. And I do think that the two countries know that it's additive when we all come together. Obviously, there's a lot of legacy between Lee Kuan Yew and Mahathir, but once there's a refresh and everything. And then if you add Singapore and Malaysia together, the GDP is pretty much Indonesia. Yeah. And the per capita income's twice, the infrastructure is there, everything is here.
The rails are better.
The rails are better. Yeah. And we've always been working very hard in the past decade, to really bring Indonesia up. We're still going to do that, but I think it's time for Singapore and Malaysia to shine.
Yeah, and I don't think I would add Singapore bak kut teh is better than Malaysian bak kut teh.
Oh, you can get a big fight on that.
Okay, we got to wrap up. I just want to say that I'm stoked that Borco started Podster and that these kind of things can happen here now. Like Bernard and I are talking about some other things we want to do in just this space, because I think that's also going to help.
You should get him,
get the voice out that like Singapore is the place. And that's one of the things I kind of want to reaffirm to people, that there's just not enough that storytelling. And that's what we're trying to do. It's not easy, but thank you guys for coming on. I suspect we're going to do this again. We'll have to work on the schedules.
How often do you want to do this?
I think at least once a month.
With the same people?
Yeah, same you guys.
Let's see how many views.
I think the vibe is better
get somebody else
with consistency.
There was enough arguing. I think it was good.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to try to do. I know it's more of a scheduling problem than anything else. But
it's always a scheduling problem.
Yeah. But anyway, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It was fun.